everyone. I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Diana Zarzuelo, Senior Director of Community Philanthropy at the Greater Houston Community Foundation. As you know, I think since March, we've been in deep partnership with the United Way of Greater Houston to administer our first joint fund, the Greater Houston COVID-19 Recovery Fund. I've gotten to know my counterpart, Mary Vasquez, quite well. She isn't here today, but she asked that I send her regards and her thanks for being here. I wanted to just start off with our deep appreciation of the work that you all are doing in our community during this really difficult time. We feel really honored to have partnered with all 85 of you to disperse a bit of over $17 million to date. So as of last week, all funds are in the hands of our nonprofit partners, and we don't expect any future grants to be made from the fund, although it is 2020, so anything can really happen this year, it feels like. But we're gathering our latest data, but as of late August, you all had served over 100,000 households and 350,000 individuals collectively through 5 rounds of grants. So we have a really nice summary report. We wanted to make you aware of that. I'll just go ahead and put it in the Q&A if you haven't seen it. There's a link to that. But you'll see that the bulk of funds have gone toward basic and urgent financial needs of our community. So food, flexible emergency financial assistance, and rental assistance with a clear focus on reaching the most vulnerable populations. Some of the data really speak to this so far in this reach. So for example, 90% of households served are very low income, earning 60% or less than area median income. 2/3 of individuals have been from Latino or Black communities, which we know have been disproportionately impacted. And over 5,000 mixed immigration status households have been reached based on the data we were able to receive. So the fund has looked at specific vulnerable populations and innovations and partnerships along the way as well to invest in, and that's partly why you're here today. We wanted to share with you, as the fund came to a close, we were particularly moved to support the families that have paid the ultimate price with a loss of a loved one due to the coronavirus, and many whom we know again are low income Latino Black families that may face new additional financial strain in addition to the trauma and grief due to this hardship. So as a result of this focus, we're pleased to partner with Memorial Assistant Ministries, who will administer this new $1.5 million COVID-19 Lost Loved One Fund for the 4-county area. We're really grateful for their willingness to rapidly set this unique fund up. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sonia G., President and CEO of MAM. Before I do that, just 2 quick housekeeping reminders. Use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen versus the chat, so we can keep organized with the Q&A. And if you'd like to speak or ask your question, use the raise your hand feature. And Alicia, who is helping at GHCF run the webinar, will call on you as we get to Q&A. So with that, Sonia?
Thank you, Diana. Thanks everyone for joining us today. MAM is really honored to be able to be a part of this really meaningful fund. I know that so many of each of you have worked with community members that have faced significant challenges, whether it's, a loss of stability and housing, of food, employment, but certainly those that have actually lost the life of a loved one. Our heart and sincerest sympathy goes out to them, but we also recognize that it just adds a whole nother layer of financial burdens as well as, legal and mental health challenges. And so we're excited to be able to be a part of this really meaningful fund, not only to provide that financial support, but also to be able to connect people to really meaningful resources through our entire network of community-based organizations. So, we really see ourselves as one more partner together with each of of you in this work. We want to ensure that the program is set up in such a way that we're supporting families in a way that best reaches their needs. So while we understand that, the current situation has kind of forced us to be able to provide this virtually, we're really excited after, many of us have spent the last many months of really fine-tuning our programs and approaches to providing virtual services. So I'm excited today to be able to introduce to you our Senior Vice President of Programs, that's Matthew Cox, as well as our Director of Family Assistance Programming, Ignacio Meso. They're going to tell you a little bit more about the fund itself and the process of applying, but we've really tried to craft it in such a way that it's as easy as possible. While we know that there are barriers, especially for some of the vulnerable households that may not have the same access to technology or digital literacy, we're here to support those that do need someone to walk them through by phone or shared virtually that process. We've also designed it in such a way that each of you can be a part of that process, because we really, we understand, especially in trauma-informed work, that the less time a family has to share their story and open up to new people and repeat and provide information, the better. And so we are asking that each of you also support by helping in the cases where it's pertinent to help your families to apply for the fund. So all that to be said, we hope that you will each help us to get the word out of this really important fund that's available thanks to the United Way and Greater Houston Community Foundation and those that have supported this COVID-19 fund. So with that, Matthew, take it away.
Thank you, Sonia. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see so many folks patching into this webinar today. MAM certainly can't provide all of this assistance on our own. It encompasses just too large of a geographical area, but we know so many of you who are already working with struggling families who've lost someone. And so thank you for your partnership and being here today. There's another training that we'll be offering on Thursday. So if you have other colleagues who need to patch in, we can get you that information. One of the things that Sonia just mentioned was kind of the time that we took to fine tune and craft our online referral process. And so particularly knowing that many families are struggling and or live out in kind of the far reaches of the 4 counties, it would be an undue burden for them to have to come into MAM's office to meet us, be interviewed, produce documents. And so to save as much time and to create as much safety as we can during the pandemic, we've created an online portal where you and or the community member themselves can actually apply for the funds right from home. The process itself takes about 20 or 30 minutes. But we feel it's definitely an added convenience in being able to stay at home or stay at their office to be able to apply. One of the other things that we've done is really thought about that trauma-informed approach and how difficult it is for many people to have to tell their stories multiple times when seeking assistance. And so the other benefit is, of course, involving all of you and other partners in the community who can actually help the community member, the client, complete the application online. And so during our experience with the Harris County COVID Relief Fund in the summertime, we encountered just a small handful of people who really did not have the technology or the wherewithal to complete that online process. And when we were able to help them with other staff at MAM or have another partner involved to actually enter the application, it made it so much easier. Qualifications. So I know that many of you are wondering, what are the basic requirements to participate in this program? So number one, the person who died must have lived in the 4-county area. Fort Bend, Harris, Montgomery, and Waller counties are all included in that. They must have lost an immediate member of their family to COVID since March 1st, 2020. And so immediate member of the family, that would be husband, wife, parent, child, those kinds of relationships. The deceased must have resided with the applicant. So they must have lived together during that period. And then income must have been at or below 80% of the area median income, the AMI, before March 1st. And so since this is a backward-looking fund, it may be difficult for folks to come up with pay stubs that go back to March or February, January. There are alternatives, of course, things like copies of the 2019 tax return, other kinds of things. And then for those of you who participated in the county process over the summer, there is a self-certification option. Other key partners who I don't think are with us today, but we'll be connecting you and all of the community members with in the near future. So the Houston Volunteer Lawyers is one. We know that families have a variety of questions around, am I responsible to pay my family members' medical bills? What if we had a will or did not have a will? What if the house or the car title is in someone else's name? How do we deal with that? And then actually determining the next of kin in some cases for who the payment would actually go to. And so we're thankful for Volunteer Lawyers for stepping up to partner with us. And that's just one of two services that we will link families with while they're waiting for the payment to actually process. We expect that the payments can be completed within about 72 hours of a completed submitted application. But so we would make those referrals to the Volunteer Lawyers, and then also referrals for mental health counseling. Of course, we know that families are grieving. They've gone through a really difficult time, and they might like to have someone outside of their family to talk to and process things with. And so we have relationships and are working on building relationships with various mental health partners all across the 4 counties. And so now, if I could have Ignacio share our process chart to kind of walk you through how someone would apply. And it's actually a pretty simple process. We have already shared or will share today the link to the MAM portal. It's done in a form called Cognito, which is a really simple way to gather all of the information and attach the evidence. So Ignacio, if you can scroll down to the bubbles. So whether you are, whether the referral to MAM comes from a referring agency such as yourselves, or it's a self-application, either way, go to our website, www.mamhouston.org/lost-loved-one. That will take you to the application and the instructions. From there, the case, if we're talking about an agency that's involved, the case manager would assist the client in completing online. So you could be talking with them in person, you could be talking with them over the phone and actually entering the data for them. Or you could be working with them, say, in a computer lab and coaching them as they go along. Same thing if it's the client who completes the application online. We do have staff available to work with folks and do the same thing here at MAM. When someone calls and says that they are having difficulty or they need help, all calls at MAM are returned no later than the next business day. Usually we get back to folks on the same day. So after submitting the application, our staff will review it for completeness. If the application is completed, then we start working to process the ACH, the direct deposit, or the check. If the application is incomplete, we go back to the client or the agency to continue gathering information. If the client is ineligible, we call the client and the referring agency, let them know that they were not eligible and why, and then we connect them with other resources in the community, including those legal resources, the mental health providers, and then others. Generally, like I said, the check and or the ACH is processed within 72 hours of full completion of the application. One of the things that we found very helpful during the county process was for clients to pick up their checks at MAM. They didn't have to worry about delays with the U.S. Postal Service, either getting lost or delayed. And so that option is still available. However, it may be a bit of a drive for someone in one of the far-reaching counties to drive to MAM. And in those cases, we will mail them. The ACH, of course, is a direct deposit. And so that goes right into the applicant's bank account within those couple of days. And then in all cases, we follow up with the client, providing a letter with contact information at MAM, and then some of those other resources they might like to have access to. So that is the basic process. if we have questions, and I don't see any questions. So what we'll likely do is just have Ignacio Meza, who again is our Director of Family Assistance Programs, walk you through the actual online application process. And please let us know if you have questions. We're happy to work with you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm going to share with you the application here. And I noticed that Sonia already shared with you in the chat the link that you're going to need to use in order to get here. Once you get here, you're going to be able to see some of the information there, the eligibility details that you can share with your clients. And then there are two links, one for English and one for Spanish. Okay, so you can do it either way. If you have a Spanish speaker, you can use the Spanish one. Now I'm going to use the English one, and that will take you here. Okay, so this is basically the application. And again, it starts with basic information. And one thing that I can point out, it's important, is this here. Do not use the back button in your browser. If you do, unfortunately, you're going to lose the information that you have entered. Okay. Notice in the bottom here, you have you have buttons that can help you navigate our application. Please use these ones here in the bottom. Okay. Again, if you have any questions, you can use this email or call us at this number here. Okay, moving forward, a few more eligibility information there. The area median income chart they can use or use to determine if the client qualifies. And then I'm going to keep going to this section here where it will ask you if you are a case manager. If you are a case manager, you're going to select yes. You're going to type your name there. You're going to type your email. And a phone number is optional. If you have one, just type your phone number there. And then it's going to ask a few questions about the applicant. Okay. Number one, if they had a family member that died of COVID. If not, it'll give them a warning that this is not the right program. Okay. Did the family member live with them? We're going to need to update this a little bit. Yes, no. Do you have a death certificate or other documents? If they say no, they can still move forward, but they are encouraged to find that information. Photo ID. And then which one of these family members was the one that passed away? If they are within those guidelines, and they can choose a few options here where the primary needs. Okay, so these are just general terms and conditions that we have for them. If they do not agree with this, they are going to be told to give us a call we can assist them to find out what is the concern and if there is another way that we can help them. But it won't let them continue with the application unless they agree with our terms and conditions. Okay. The second section here is an authorization for us to release or obtain information about the client. They also need to agree to this one. Okay, and then here is where the applicant can type their name. I'm just really quickly going to go through these. One important note is that the applicant must be at least 18 years of age or older. And that is primarily there because many in previous experience, clients were just clicking here and they were selecting the current year as the date of birth, and that was a mistake. So I'm going to quickly go through this. And here is where you type the address for the applicant. Another quick comment that I forgot to mention at the beginning, you see the little red star, that means that it's a required field. That is going to be, it won't let you move forward unless you have an answer there. Okay, how many people lived in the household? Usually it should be at least 2 because they're applying for somebody else too. So income. And how did they hear about us? Okay. And then here is where you're going to need to enter the information about the person that passed away. Again, this is going to be basically basic information. There is no age restrictions here. Once you do that, then you are to select how do you want to receive the payment. Okay, there are 2 options. One of them is a check. If you select a check, would you like to pick it up at our office? Yes or no? Or they can have a direct deposit. If they choose direct deposit, they will be asked whether it's a checking or a savings account. They're encouraged to provide us with a copy of a voided check. And then they are to enter the routing number and the account number. Also, they need to sign here as an authorization for us to be able to do that direct deposit. Once they enter that payment information, they are able to upload all the documentation. If they're doing this on the phone, they can actually take pictures of the documents and they can still upload them right from their phone. In fact, I would say that that was when we did the county assistance project, great majority of our clients did that over the phone. Not everyone has a scanner at home that can, scan documents. So most of them did a picture on their phone and then uploaded them here. Now, there is also an option here for you to save. For example, if you get to a point where, or even this point where you are needing to gather some documents, say that you don't have the death certificate yet, you can actually save this here. When you click on save, you can type your email and it will email you a link for you to continue this application at a later time. It only allows up to 4 days though, okay? If you don't have an email, you can actually save this link right here and then use that to go back to it at a later time. Okay, once you click that, there is a quick acknowledgement. You just need to sign that and submit. Okay, once you submit, you will actually get an email back. Okay, both if you are the case manager and also if you entered an email for the for the applicant, they will also get an email confirmation. It will provide them a confirmation number that you can use, to ask questions or follow up. Okay. That's basically the application online.
Okay, so we have a bunch of questions, and I'm going to go ahead and field them to you, Matthew and Ignacio. There are a couple questions that are asking about the documentation for undocumented families. One of the questions is asking whether self-certification is the best way to help with proof of or lack of income. We can start with that one.
It could be. It could be. A lot of times what we found in our normal business at MAM is that an employer will be happy to talk with you. They may not want to fill out a form, but they might talk with you and explain that the person, what their job is and how much they made. And then you could include that in the self-certification statement too, but that's not required. We can certainly just go with the self-certification that explains this is how much money I made last year, and that would be good enough.
Okay, and a follow-up also pertaining to undocumented families. Is there an alternative to direct deposit? Many undocumented families face barriers to obtaining bank accounts.
Sure. So the alternative that we have right now would be a bank check that they could take to our bank, Amegy Bank. There is a fee, a small fee to cash them, but they could also take it to a check cashing place that sometimes are in local communities.
Okay. There's a question about IDs. What are forms of valid IDs? And I'll just mention that you can find the list of these on the website www.mamhouston.org/lost loved one. But go ahead, Matthew.
Sure. So the IDs that we're looking for would generally be government issued IDs that have a photo. It can be US or from a foreign country. So it could be a foreign passport, a foreign driver's license. It could be a local work permit. It could be a student ID if we're talking about someone who's in college or in secondary school. Really, it's just we're looking for an official kind of ID. It's okay if it's expired, so we know that. We just want to make sure we know that the person is who they say they are.
Can you also speak, while you're talking about documentation requirements, the proof of residency, both for the deceased member of the family as well as the other household member that was residing in the same household?
Sure. So proof of address could come in the form of a copy of a recent bill. It could be a utility bill, a cell phone bill, car payment, anything that has the relevant names on them and the address where we are told that they live together. So it could also be a social security letter, some kind of a legal document, anything like that.
So one follow-up question was, so are all the IDs that were acceptable for the county funds all acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. So another question, this one's for Ignacio. It's about the form itself. And it was a question about when indicating the number of people in the household, should that also include the deceased person in the count?
Would say yes.
Okay, so we may actually update, that's a great question. We might update the form so that there's more clarity on that as well. Thanks, Jennifer, for that clarifying question. As we mentioned, I mean, this is new, so we're definitely working with each of you to help, clarify and make it a better, clearer process for everybody. Christina asks, if we are filling out forms for the clients, how do we get the signature for the direct deposit?
That's a good question.
That's a really good question.
So we've actually talked about having the opportunity of sending just that portion of the application directly to the clients. And we would be interested in your feedback of, is it more likely that a client would be able to do that like from their cell phone and we could send it directly to them in that way and let you as the, referring partner know that we are sending that so you can help follow up and maybe, walk them through that process. So we'll make sure that our form on our end allows us to be able to do that where, you could still indicate there's an interest for the ACH, but because you're the referring partner, you won't have the signature at that time. Yeah. Okay, another question that we have here is, that one already.
See, there are a couple from Alejandra Cartagena.
Yeah. Will expired IDs be accepted if they expired after March of this year? And will expired IDs be accepted if they're expired? Oh, it's the same question. Yeah, after March of this year.
Yes. Yep, those are acceptable.
Okay, the other question was, does the proof of address have to be dated?
I would say yes. So generally, anything that you would provide as evidence, if it's a bill, if it's a legal document, will automatically have the date on it or reference. So it could be a bill. It doesn't say the bill was produced on January 1st, but it might say it's due February 1st, 2020. So yes, so we should have a date. If there's a challenge.
Right, you can contact us, Alejandra, or whoever else, if there's a question about, you're struggling with some of the documentation and you have something and you want to understand whether or not it's valid, then, certainly reach out to our team. And we want to make it as inclusive as possible, certainly doing due diligence to make sure that folks really are, who qualify, are getting the funding as intended by the fund. Okay, I think that might have been all the questions. Are there any other additional questions, either about eligibility or about the process itself?
I do see a question that it says Diana would like to answer from Donna Watkins about the grandparent.
Yeah, I didn't realize I put myself, sorry about that. But I was just messaging about it. I feel like grandparent, aunt, and uncle, if they're living in the household and they provide care, and that they qualify. Certainly we have been talking about grandparents, so I think that was a really great catch, Donna, on the list. I don't think grandparent or aunt and uncle are listed.
No.
Okay,
So
we'll make sure that gets added to the menu, to the actual form itself then.
That's
Great.
easy.
In special circumstances, would the case manager be able to sign for the client? Are you referring, so this is N Flag Thompson, is it the signature for the ACH that you're referring to?
Thompson, if you want to raise your hand, Alicia can actually unmute you too, so we can have a conversation. And for anyone, that goes for anybody, if you want to have a conversation or provide feedback, as Sonia mentioned, this is all new, so really wanting to make it as seamless as possible. You can raise your hand.
And I'm thinking this might be a question for the volunteer lawyers, just thinking about what are the reasons we're getting the signature to begin with. So for me, a client who sends you an email that says, yes, you have my permission to submit the application for me, is different from signing that you can have access to someone's bank records. And so that might be a question for the volunteer lawyers.
Okay, oh, here's a follow-up on that. I'm asking because Meals on Wheels clients will be hard to obtain a signature. Volunteers will not see the clients, and we do not complete home visits currently. Yeah, so then I think, in this case, it's certainly the ACH signature is only required in the case that somebody is preferring that the assistance be provided by direct deposit. Otherwise, we certainly have the capacity to mail a check to them. And for those that are homebound seniors, that would likely be the most effective way to provide the actual assistance itself. Does that sufficiently answer the question?
I think you're unmuted now if you'd like to speak. N Flag, sorry, I think that's your last name. Can you hear us? Can you speak? maybe not.
And we
Okay.
can also talk to you offline and then send everyone the response. I'm sure there'll be others with a similar concern.
So Jennifer asks, is the funding $3,500 per application household, or does it depend on the household size?
Yeah, so it's actually so it's $3,500 per death. And so in the very sad circumstance that there were two people in the same household, they would be able to get up to $7,000. But it has nothing to do with family size. It's just per the household.
So Donna mentions that for the Harris County COVID Relief Fund, no signature was required for the direct deposit. The bank login and password were equivalent to a signature authorization. So that would be something, I think that it depends on the service provider policies. So currently, that's the signatures required for us, but we are happy to look at that, both from the audit perspective, as well as if we do find that, there are many cases like what you all have brought up, which is if there, are seniors or other folks that, for whatever reason are unable to be serviced in another way, we can look and see if there might need to be a modification there. I think that's all of the questions that we have right now in the Q&A. Did I miss one? Did anybody else see one that I missed?
I don't think so. Donna, I see that you maybe raised your hand. Did you want to add or clarify anything?
Just mentioning the authorization that the signature was not required for ACH when we did the Harris County COVID Relief Fund. I was just mentioning that.
Okay. Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Lannis has a live question, Alicia.
Yeah, got two more here. Okay, so one is there an application deadline?
Really, the application deadline depends on how long the funding lasts. And so we're not expecting to get a huge flood because of the criteria, thinking about income and some of the other factors. We've lost a few thousand people in the local area, and we have funding for about 400, a little more than 400. So we think it should last at least for a few months, I would hope. But it all depends on you and how many referrals you send in and how many families you're able to help.
The other question is, how long does this process last? And I'm not sure if that is referring to how long it takes once the application is received for payment to be applied. Why don't we go ahead and answer that? And then Jody, if that's not what you're asking, if you could, just let us know, clarify the question.
Sure. So from the time we receive the complete full application with all of the documentation, it takes no more than 72 hours to process the check or the direct deposit. And so from the moment you get the confirmation that you're done and submitted and everything has been accepted, that's what really starts the clock ticking. Generally, we start processing the payments the next day. And then they're ready to go the day after that. So it's a pretty fast process.
Okay. Lannis is asking for more follow-up to the more than one death in a household situation.
Sure. So basically the application process would be the same. What we might need to do so that you don't have to complete redundant applications is add another deceased, an option for how many people in the home died from COVID, and that way the rest of the information is the same. But basically you would just provide the same kind of information. So we would need 2 death certificates that said that the death resulted from COVID, that both people resided in the home, and that the income was below the 80% AMI. And that's really all. It would just be the extra documents and information.
That's all the questions that I'm seeing right now in the Q&A. But as Matthew mentioned, certainly you can reach out to us. The same email that we've posted into the chat, it's also on the website. And the phone number, you can use those. It's help@mamhouston.org is the email for this, and it's specifically just for this fund. So the phone number 713-468-4516, extension 104. Those are the contacts that you can use, both community members who are reaching out directly that need support, but you also as community-based organizations supporting your community members can use that if you have additional follow-up questions.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. I think we'll go ahead and now appreciate your questions. They've already prompted some good fixes and additions. So we really appreciate your engagement. And yeah, on behalf of us at the Greater Houston Community Foundation and United Way, really appreciate your partnership in supporting, directing families to this resource for those that who have lost a loved one in the past or in the future, unfortunately. So the fund, is a 6-month fund. I think Jody asked a question, but we anticipate spending down a little bit sooner than that. But we'll see how things go. Okay, with that, thank you, Sonia, Matthew, Ignacio.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thanks, Al.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.